Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and so delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show. Let them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods, wherever you find your favorite shows. We have two really fascinating guests today. Later on in the show, we'll be meeting Hena Khan. She'll be celebrating Behind My Doors and a number of other books that are releasing this year. But first, we're going to meet Marty Martinez, who is the CEO of Reach Out and Read, a fantastic organization that started right here in Boston. Attention all adventure seekers, get ready to embark on an epic journey with Tim Wright's The Adventures of Toby Baxter middle grade series. Join Toby Baxter on his thrilling escapades filled with mystery, friendship, and courage. With two exciting books already in the series, now is the perfect time to catch up before the release of the highly anticipated third installment. Book 1, The River Elf, The Giant, and the Closet, is a high-flying middle-grade fantasy. If you like daring journeys, hilarious characters, and heartfelt lessons about confidence, then you'll love the first installment in the series. Book number 2 is River Home for the Holidays, a humorous, tongue-in-cheek middle school age science fiction book. This quest is filled with holiday fun, dangers, and inspiration, sure to capture the imagination of lovers of thriller and fantasy adventures. But the adventure doesn't stop there. Be prepared for even more excitement in the upcoming release of book number 3, Aloha River Home, The Good Prophecy. Don't miss out on the excitement. Start your adventure today with books number 1 and 2, and be ready for Tim's book number 3 when it hits the shelves. The Adventures of Toby Baxter Middle Grade Series by Tim Wright. It's available wherever books are sold. This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by The Adventures of Patch, delightful series of adventure stories written by David Gibby. Overwhelmed by endless hours of screen time, craving a wholesome escape for your little ones? Introduce them to the enchanted world of The Adventures of Patch the Bear. Crafted with love and imagination, these tales serve as a passport to wonder-filled adventures, far from the digital buzz. Let Patch light up your child's world, allowing them to explore, dream, and imagine beyond boundaries. This is a really fun series that you and your kids will absolutely adore. The Adventures of Patch, written by David Gibby. Are you looking for a creative way to bond with your kids? Let me tell you all about Drawing with Your Kids, the ultimate destination for artistic adventures. Join us as we dive into the wonderful world of children's books with renowned illustrators guiding you step by step. From beloved characters to whimsical scenes, unleash your imagination and create cherished memories together. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just picking up a pencil, there's something for everyone at Drawing with Your Kids. Please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and click on the Drawing with Your Kids link at the top of the page and let the creativity flow. Drawing with Your Kids, where every stroke brings stories to life. Hey, here's a quick editorial note before we invite Marty Martinez into the studio. My notes during the original recording, my notes were mistaken, and in a couple places I referred to Marty as Dr. Marty Martinez. Marty wanted me to make sure that you know that he is not a doctor, he is not a physician, but he is the CEO of a fantastic organization called Reach Out and Read, and you are going to love getting to know him and getting to know all about Reach Out and Read. Here's Marty Martinez. Join us right now from the beautiful city of Boston. We should have gotten together at a Dunkin' Donuts. Our guest is here today to celebrate reading and reading together and the many benefits we get from reading with our kids. Please welcome to the show the leader, the driving force behind Reach Out and Read, Marty Martinez. Hey, Marty, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to have you on. First, can we start by you telling us a little bit about the Reach Out and Read organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So Reach Out and Read is a 35-year-old organization. We were founded at Boston City Hospital by folks training to become pediatricians who wanted to integrate books into visits for children and families. They wanted to give books to families. They wanted books to be part of those visits. And that started and turned into what is a very simple model that trains clinicians to integrate books and early reading and early literacy guidance for children 5 and under through well child visits. And so we started at one hospital 35 years ago, and now we're in 6,400 clinics all across the United States. Implementing this model, and last year alone we reached 4.4 million children with this, pretty simple evidence-based model that promotes shared reading and shared bonding that happens through that reading.
Wow, that is fantastic. It really is wonderful, and I'm guessing because we've had pediatricians and a pediatric surgeon on the podcast in the past who are writing books about illnesses and health, and so they're writing books to read to kids who are dealing with different medical issues. You're not talking about that. You're talking about something different, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're really just talking about the integration of books into a visit that a child has with their doctor. That's just a regular well child visit, and the book can be about anything, right? The book can be focused on a story about a family, a story about first day of school, a story about, birds and, a child playing in the park. I mean, this really is giving doctors and giving clinicians, the training and skills to how do I use a book with the parent and think about using that and integrating it into a well child visit, right? I have a 6-year-old son. So when I bring my son to the pediatrician wants to talk to me about, his weight and, thinking about healthy eating and thinking about exercise and all that other good stuff. But also at the same time, the pediatrician says, hey, books are important for kids to read. It's important for you to spend time reading to your child every day if you can. And that a little bit of guidance, it's just about that shared opportunity to connect, but it's also promoting early literacy, which we know is really key for children to be ready to learn when they get to school. So that's really what it's about. It's not really about specific health issues. It's really about early literacy and brain development. And that's the power of the model.
That is so heartening. If I hadn't been doing this podcast pretty much by myself for the past 7 years, because I've had this thought of like, wow, what a great way to reach parents, but through a doctor and through, just having books and doctors telling parents about the benefits of books. I want to talk to you a little bit. We've celebrated here on the podcast, the fact that if you read with your kid every day, 15, 20 minutes a day, by the time that kid gets to kindergarten, he will have heard over a million or close to a million more words than his peers who weren't read to. And that's a benefit that really is almost impossible to make up, because it's just going to grow from there. That kid who's heard all those millions of words, they're going to hear new words at school. And so those kids who haven't been read to are always going to be trying to catch up. So kudos to you.
Yeah.
We talk a lot, about the benefits, like the million words. I personally started the podcast because I know the relationship I have with my kids, which is pretty strong now that they're adults, was built on a foundation of reading with them and having those conversations. But I think you've discovered that there are health benefits when you're reading with kids. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no question that, the reading aloud and shared reading between children and parents, it definitely does those pieces you mentioned about, the more words kids learn earlier in their life, they're building words, they're building letters, they're building an understanding of, how do words connect thoughts and ideas, right? So we know that a child's brain is 80% developed by the time they're 3 years of age, right? So 80% developed by the time they're 3, right? So again, the more you can integrate words and letters, that early literacy is key. But what we've also learned through our model is that really, and you said this, Jed, in terms of communicating and sort of sharing reading with your child, it's not always about the words on the page, right? Sometimes it's rarely about the story that's in the page. It's about sitting down, bonding, connecting, cuddling up with your child, and going through what's the story that's there, right? I say all the time, I've been a dinosaur, I've been a fire truck, I've been a meatball falling from the sky. I mean, I've been all kinds of stuff in those stories. And that bonding, that early relationship, and we call it like early relational health, that early emotional connection, that's really what helps children get ready to learn, right? A child that feels protected and supported, especially 5 and under, they are building the foundation for all the other learning and all the other pieces that come with it. So really what our model is doing is giving a parent and a child guidance from their doctor about why that time reading, why those moments matter in terms of building up the support that a child needs to be able to, be resilient and to be able to actually, get all the other effects that we're looking for them to have in terms of good health and good care and really readiness for what it means as they get older. So that's really what that benefit's about. So, we talk about even our sort of new vision is that we want a world where all children have the relationships to help them learn and thrive. Because that's really what it's about. And we do it through shared reading. We do it through creating those moments for children and parents to have it. And it's a very powerful but very simple model that we have that contributes to children reading more and really having the supports they need to be ready to learn and to be ready to excel.
Yeah. When I started the podcast, my beautiful wife taught in Boston for 34 years, and one of her best friends was a principal in Boston for probably just about as long. And I sat down with them and I said, hey, I know that most of the people who are listening to the podcast, I'm preaching to the choir. They came to the show because they love reading with their kids and they want to find new books. How can we reach the parents in your school? You're serving kids in low income areas, and how can we get them to read? And they came back with a lot of our parents can't read.
Right.
A lot of our parents don't speak English and they don't read in English, or they're working 3 jobs and they get home and they're exhausted. How can Reach Out and Read help those families?
Yeah, it's a really good point, because we want to make sure that, that we're making those connections for parents to be able to bring that, that pretty simple, experience of sitting down with your child and reading together. We want all children to have that, right? Regardless of literacy levels, regardless of language spoken at home, etc. And so one of the things that Reach Out and Read does is do a couple things. One, we eliminate the barrier of having access to books. Right. So what we'll do through our model, a child will start to build a home library. So from birth to the age of 5, they'll get about 14 books, new books, books that are diverse, books that can be bilingual if the family English is the language spoken at home, and books that are really age appropriate and developmentally appropriate. So they'll get 14 books. Books are expensive, to be fair, and not everyone has access to books. So one thing we're doing is eliminating the barrier to that. So that's one key piece. The second is the guidance that a doctor gives to a parent. It's really not about, see these words here, read these words. It's really about spending time with your child, like making up a story on a page. We even have one of our training sessions is really working with more limited English parents, and really the modeling is, it doesn't matter what's on the page. Make it up. Make up the story, right? Some of our books don't even have words. They're just pictures. And we know when children are younger, they like to see pictures of babies and kids. And so that's a nice added piece. So it really is eliminating having words be this is really about what's on the page. No, this is really about them hearing your voice, the child hearing, you talk to them about a story and making that emotional connection. That's really strengthening the bond with your child, but also getting them ready to learn and getting ready to do that. And so that's a key part of it. I think the other thing we do at Reach Out and Read is we know that this is just one lane, right? So I mentioned earlier that my son is in kindergarten right now, he's 6 years old. Every day we get a note from school in his folder, and it asks us, did you read to him today? And it has a checkbox every day so that you can check off, did you at least spend 10, 15 minutes reading with him today? And what's important about that is that's a great place when you're in kindergarten, and knowing that he got books and got guidance before that, it sort of connects the dots, right? So helping parents see a connection between, I don't need to have an hour, right? Alone, a parent that's a working parent with a lot going on maybe doesn't have 45 minutes to be able to do that. But just little moments of reading and connecting over a book or a story, and showing you that that's preparing them to go into kindergarten. Because in kindergarten, the teacher's going to ask you, did you read to your child today? Because it's building and building and building sort of that brain development, that word development, and being ready to be able to learn. So for us, it's really about connecting resources. It's really about making sure that the books aren't the barrier and that there's access to them. And it's really about encouraging parents to ensure that it's not about whether or not they can read everything on the page, but it's more about the connection and building and language that you share with your child. I will say for an early literacy program, we have very robust evidence. And our evidence shows that a parent that experiences our model through their doctor is 2.5 times more likely to read to their child every single day, right? Because it eliminates the barrier as a book, and it also eliminates the fact that, I have to be able to read all this in order to talk to my child and read to them. It's not true. And so we really do see that the presence of our model does eliminate a lot of the barriers. And so that's one of the benefits of what we're trying to do. And it's really why we want all children 5 and under in the United States to get Reach Out and Read through their well child visits. And it's something we're working to grow and expand right now.
I have to tell you, just 2 weeks ago, we had a literacy fair in Lynn, Massachusetts for a Title I school. And I'm up there doing my educational magic show, and I'm wearing a silly hat, and I'm telling parents of all the benefits they get, reading with their kids and how many benefits their kids get. And we were able to give kids books.
That's great.
And it was great. But I know that as much as those parents might have listened to me, they'd listen to me a lot more if I had a stethoscope around my neck and degrees on the back. And, I wasn't a clown up there telling them to read with their kids. I was a doctor telling them to read with their kids.
Yeah. That's really true. And that's the power of the model, to be honest with you, for us. I mean, having our doctors, pediatricians, family doctors, nurse practitioners, physician assistants, all of those folks provide well child visits for children. And we know time and time again, research shows that parents trust their pediatrician. Parents trust their kids' doctors with all kinds of things, especially advice and guidance, right? And so for us, that partnership is amazing. We partner with 36,000 trained clinicians across the country. We do not pay them. We ask them to do. We ask them to get trained. We ask them to do reporting. We provide them support and training and resources. But they do it as part of the care they provide children, right? So we have a great general pediatrician as our board chair, Dr. Hacker from Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And she always says, for me, Reach Out and Read, it's the way I deliver an early, a well child visit. It's not separate. It's not an added thing. Oh, don't forget the book. She goes, no, it's part of how I think about, I'm building a relationship with this family. I'm building a relationship with with the child. And the book is a vehicle and a tool to do that. And it's really a way to sort of strengthen that experience. And so the clinicians, one thing we rarely have to do is to convince doctors to do the model. That's not really something we really have to do. They're eager to do it, and they're very eager to implement it, and to give children that head start that every child needs as they're getting ready to develop and their brain is developing, and moving forward. So that partnership is so meaningful, but it takes all of us. It takes the clown in the community and the parents and the library and the schools and us. Doing that with well child visits. It takes us all to do it, to strengthen early literacy and to advance the cause of helping children learn to read so they can then read to learn, which is super important.
Wow. Who would have thought that, getting advice to read would be coming from doctors who write prescriptions that nobody can read?
Yeah. Absolutely right. That's a whole nother podcast conversation.
Hey, tell us a little bit more, if there's a pediatrician out there that's listening to this, or if somebody knows a pediatrician, how can clinicians get involved?
Yeah, for sure. So our website at reachoutandread.org lists clinics all across the country who deliver Reach Out and Read already. And it also lists organizational partners who support clinics to be able to be involved and to be able to get trained. People can sign up on our website. Doctors and clinics can sign up through our website to say, hey, I want to get trained and I would like to deliver Reach Out and Read, and for us to be able to do that. Last year alone, we added 400 clinics across the country, and we're going to continue to add clinics each and every year as we grow across the country. So it's a great way to get connected. The website also allows parents to say, hey, I wonder if my doctor does Reach Out and Read. Or as a new family is looking for a new pediatrician, they can go in and look by region and look by practice to say, hey, I wonder if our doctor does that in our place and in our location, to try to figure out how to integrate Reach Out and Read within their own child's practice. So the website has a lot of information and a lot of ways to get involved, and it really does create some access points for people to learn more about what we do. And how to make sure their child can benefit from it.
Yeah. I'm hoping, I'm going to plant a little seed here.
Yeah.
One of the things that we really celebrate is, and encourage families, is to continue to read with their kids after they become independent readers, because those conversations, I tell parents, young parents all the time, they come up to me, how am I going to talk to my teenager about drugs and alcohol? I go, so those conversations start when they're 3. You're not going to talk about drugs when they're 3, but you're going to start having a conversation and get that rhythm going and keep it going. So when they're 16, you have to have those conversations. They're easy.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think that's why I think it's important to remember that reading, again, isn't just about reading and literacy and word development. It really is about that emotional connection. And that also then builds, right? So the conversations I may have had with my 3-year-old is different than the conversations that, he's having when he sees something at school that doesn't make sense to him. And he's asking me, like, Papa, what is this? Like, I don't understand that. Then we talk about it, right? And that connection and sitting through it. And to your point, Jed, sometimes a book really helps, right? I mean, we've used books. I remember the first time he was going to fly, we bought a book about airplanes and had a whole conversation as what does it mean to fly, and wanting to think about it and airplanes and understand it. And, and I think it's sometimes we forget that books, they open up so many stories, right? We think about mirrors and windows. Children see themselves, but then they also see the world through books and stories through books. And so it can create that connection that then you can use as a child gets older, as a child tries to continue to move forward. So I think that's a really key piece, and I couldn't stress it enough that reading together is really important. And those stories open up imagination at 3 or 4, but especially as you get older.
Yeah.
That's how you figure out what you want to do in life.
Yeah. So let's encourage you to encourage those doctors to continue to have literacy-based visits with their kids when they're 8, 9, 10, and 12 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. And to make the connection between what's happening in a doctor's office and what's happening in the community and what's happening in school, because it's all connected. It's all the lifeline that children have. So absolutely, I appreciate that.
I don't want to end this before we talk about Reach Out and Read. You guys just won an award, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We were one of our clinics in Wisconsin, won an award through Help.com. which is really an award we won that's about innovation in healthcare, innovation within healthcare space. And that's not about technology, right? It's an innovation of connecting. And so we won an award. Our clinic in Wisconsin won it. It was one of 12 awards across the country around this. And it's ironic because I'll tell you, when we think of innovation, we're 35 years old. I sit with our founder and talk to him sometimes, one of our founders, Dr. Robert Needleman, about what we're doing. And, you know, it's the same exact model. Our model has not changed in 35 years. We are really very simply saying, hey, books and reading and early literacy is key to the health of all children, and we want all children to have that. So it was great to get that award through Health.com, and it's great to continue to think about how our model is innovating the way children get care from their doctors, and that's a really valuable piece and something we really care about.
If somebody is out there and they want to help out and support Reach Out and Read, how does that happen?
Yeah, the best way to do it, again, is to go into our website and to find a local affiliate. We have affiliates across the country. We have great, affiliates baked up in about almost 30 places across the country. And that local affiliate does all kinds of things, from raising awareness, getting donated books. All of the books we give out at clinic visits are new, but we also do gently used donated books for older kids, to your point, Jed, right? Just because someone's 7 doesn't mean they don't want Reach Out and Read anymore. And so we connect them too. So people can donate books, can get involved in local events, can get involved in sort of some of the work that's happening. But on our website, especially depending on where you're located, right? I'm in Boston, but we have clinics in every state in the United States that are operating Reach Out and Read. And so people can get involved locally to support the organization, and also to support sort of the work we're trying to do to make sure every child has this opportunity.
This is wonderful. I'm so excited, so proud that it started in Boston, and it's continuing on. We've had a great time speaking to the driving force behind Reach Out and Read, their CEO, Marty Martinez. Hey, Marty, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Jed. I appreciate it.
Hey there, families! Are you looking for an exciting way to bond and learn together? Look no further than our STEM is Family Fun video series. Join us as we explore the fascinating world of STEM through hands-on activities right in your own home. Our series features lessons from experts at renowned institutions like the San Diego Children's Discovery Museum, the National Children's Museum in Washington, D.C., and Children's Museum Houston. From making homemade rainbow bridges to creating an oboe out of a straw, there's something for everyone in the family to enjoy. So grab your lab coats and get ready for an adventure. Go to readingwithyourkids.com and click on the STEM is Family Fun link at the top of the page, and let the learning and laughter begin. STEM is Family Fun, where learning and bonding go hand in hand. Join us right now from the beautiful state of Maryland. Our guest is here today to celebrate the release of 5 different books here in 2024. Please welcome to the show the very prolific Hena Khan. Hey, Hena, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jed. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm excited to chat with you.
It's obvious that you're excited. You have this huge smile on your face. You are beaming, and I certainly understand it. 5 books coming out in 1 year, and it seems like one after another. I understand you being excited. I could also understand if you were completely exhausted.
A little bit, but in the best possible way, from travels and getting to talk with lots of kids and doing lots of events, and it's been a very busy year, but and probably will continue to be, but it's so fun to get to do this and to get to celebrate it, which happens every so often. It just happens to be a whole bunch for me this year.
Well, that's really wonderful. Now, the book that was most recently released is called The Door is Open. Tell us all about this book.
Oh, thank you. So it's actually an anthology of short stories that I edited. They all are written by an amazing roster of South Asian American writers. We've got some real rock stars on the list. And all of the stories are taking place at the same fictional community center that we created in a fictional town of New Jersey. So the stories feature young characters who appear in the different stories written by different authors, all while there's a larger story that connects them all that's happening with this community center, which is sort of a character in the book as well. So a real fun project involving some of my very favorite writers, and a way to really showcase some of the diversity that exists within the South Asian community with regards to, you know, religion and ethnicity and language, but then this wonderful, rich, shared heritage that we all have as South Asians. We call ourselves Desi. And so these are 11 Desi voices, where all of us see each other in our stories, but we also are very unique. So a really fun project to work on.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I love those kind of works, whether it's books or movies or television series, where you're looking at kind of the same story or the same circumstance from many different perspectives. And it's fascinating, but I also think it's really great because it helps the reader, helps kids understand that, you know, we live in this beautiful world, but we all have different perspectives and visions, and we experience the events differently based on those perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason we chose the community center is because for many of us and for many different immigrant communities, places like that are popular for renting out halls and hosting celebrations there, whether it's a religious celebration or a wedding function or a graduation party or whatever it is. And so all of us had a connection to a community center like the one we created, where these types of events took place. And it was just fun to have everything from a chess competition to, you know, a wedding celebration to, you know, a fundraiser, all happening, you know, at the same place, and the characters knowing each other in different stories. But like you said, you know, the very different perspectives and specifics of every character and their experience, but then this also larger shared experience.
Yeah. So we're talking about the South Asian community. We're talking about folks from India, Pakistan. Tell us the other countries that make up the South Asian community.
So India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. You know, my geography isn't so strong, so I'm not, I think we would include Nepal. I would include Nepal, but I'm not sure technically if that would fall into, you know, Southeast Asia. So most of these writers or I would say all of these writers are from India or Pakistan, but we have, originally, you know, their heritage, which of course was all one country before it was divided. And yeah, within that we have, you know, geographically different groups, different ethnicities, different languages, as I mentioned, and different religions. So we have Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, Christian, and Jewish all represented in this book, which was also really neat to see. Yeah.
You know, I've learned over the course of doing this podcast a lot about India, not so much about Pakistan and Bangladesh. One of our associate producers is in Mumbai, and I have a very dear friend in a different part of India. I was fascinated to learn how diverse India is. I think the number is 28 official languages and probably a few hundred other languages and dialects. It seems like such an amazing place. We always refer to the United States as a melting pot, but that seems like an even bigger, you know, collection and rainbow of people.
Yeah, and a billion people at that, right?
Exactly, yeah. So how did this book come together? Was this your idea of like, hey, I got this great idea, we're going to do this thing in a community center, bring these other authors in, or were you brought in to kind of take the editing role?
It was my idea, and I love anthologies. I've written for a few different ones. I thought it would be, you know, a great thing to get to do. I also love editing. It's something I used to do in my former life before children's writing. A different type of editing, but editing nonetheless. And so I was hoping to get to do something like this. I was encouraged by a dear friend, author Ellen O, who did a similar anthology featuring East Asian writers that are all set. It's called You Are Here, and it's set in an airport. And it's different and similar in the sense that it all takes place at this airport. But in that particular case, the stories are all revolving around an incident, one particular incident, whereas mine is more linear and over a period of time. And mine are connected and I should say ours, is connected in a different way. But she was really supportive and encouraged me to pursue this. And then, once the idea sort of solidified, I came up with a list of, authors I would love to work with, authors whose work I've read and admire, some who I knew personally, some who I didn't. And then I reached out to all of them to see if they would be interested in joining me. And I was so thrilled that they did. And then we got together and we brainstormed some of the specifics, like I mentioned, that initially I was thinking it might be like just a hall that was available for rent, like we often use for weddings and parties and so on. But we decided to change it to a community center, since you could have such a wider variety of events that might happen there, like a spelling bee, for example, or a chess match, in addition to the cultural events. So that's why we decided to change it. And so it was very much a collaboration, everyone sharing their story ideas, sharing their character names and some details so that we could borrow from each other's characters and insert them into our stories. And then we decided on the larger narrative arc that would be happening behind the scenes to the community center itself. And then my job was to help thread that needle and weave it through with their help, in addition to, the individual stories.
That must have been quite a challenge for you. Did you create like a roadmap or a canon to kind of keep everything together?
Not too much, other than a Word document, that we shared that had, like I said, like just basic story ideas and character names. And then, but what we did do was share drafts of our stories as soon as everyone was ready to, which was interesting, sharing rough drafts before they were finalized so that people could get a sense of each other's stories and build off of that. But the stories are unique and distinct. So it didn't need to be a, very hard continuum. They're linked, but they're not, in like, day order or something like that. And so we didn't actually decide on the order. I chose the order of the stories last. Once I saw which ones were more centered around the center itself and that part of the story, which ones just sort of loosely happen there. So I sort of built that up and we made some changes. And then I wrote my story, which appears in the book as well, sort of last, to fit that in and make sure it helped drive the story the way I wanted it to. So it was complex, but it was, and a good amount of work for all of us, but in the most beautiful way. We all just loved working on this together, and there was such a sense of family while we were working on it, and support and enthusiasm. Really, it's been beautiful, the whole process. I loved it. I would do it again in a heartbeat, especially with this group of authors, because they made it so easy.
It sounds like this is a great. Oh, by the way, what age group is the door is open best suited for?
So it's middle grade, so very solidly middle grade. So I would say upper elementary through middle school.
We talk about what kind of conversations families can have, or what can we do that's inspired by the book. I was just thinking about The Door is Open and about it being set in a community center. And then you also mentioned you wrote worked at a similar project based in an airport. We've been doing a lot of traveling, and I think that airport idea, as you're sitting there waiting as your plane is delayed and the gate is changed and then the terminal is changed, what a great way to pass the time and really kind of inspire creativity and imagination in your kids when you're at that airport. Hey, what do you think that person behind the gate, what's their story here? And what about the person that we're seeing, in the flight crew? And just have those kind of conversations, not only to pass the time, but really to get your kids, give your kids imagination a good workout.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll clarify, I didn't actually contribute to You Are Here because that was centered on East Asian characters, but I did read it and enjoy it and love to see the way, I think kids too would love to see the way like you mentioned earlier, the different characters all react from a different perspective and a different vantage point to the same incident that takes place. But yeah, I think I love writing prompts, and I think it's such a great way to get readers involved. And the good thing about, this book and all of my books is there's great resource guides that have been developed and are available. You can find them on my website, but, other, questions and ways to get kids thinking about the story and sort of reflecting and examining the text, but also getting hopefully inspired to write their own stories too. So I love that idea, and I love the idea of people watching and imagining
Absolutely.
some of my favorite things to do.
Now, barring any publication delays or pushback, or barring the books are stuck on a boat trying to get into Los Angeles Harbor, Behind My Doors is the next book of yours that is coming out. Yes, I'm very excited about this one as well, because this is a story I've wanted to tell, for many years, and wasn't sure how to share it. It's about the oldest library, the oldest continually operating library in the world, which many are surprised to hear is located in Fez, Morocco. And it's called Al-Qarawiyyan Library, affiliated with Al-Qarawiyyan University, which was the first university founded in the world as well. And what many people don't know, apart from the library itself, is that both were founded by a woman named Fatima Al-Firi back in the year 1859, I believe. No, sorry, not 1859. Scratch that, 859. So a century earlier. And it's just amazing to think about the scholarship that happened at this university and the library over centuries, and some of the amazing transfer of knowledge, some of the advancements in mathematics and science and medicine happened during that time, and people and scholars from all over the world would travel there to learn and study. So I love the idea of writing about this place that just is beautiful, and the Moroccan tiles and lanterns, and it just looks like this magical place you want to be at, but it also fell into disrepair. And in recent years, in the 1950s and onward, it was a bit neglected, until the 2000s, when a Moroccan woman architect living in Canada named Aziza Shaouni, she was hired to restore this beautiful library. And she described it as this adventure, because the library was expanded slowly over time and had, hidden walls, and there was no blueprint. So she restored this damaged library that had a branch of the Fez River flowing beneath it, which was threatening to ruin these books, because clearly water and books don't mix. So it was a fun thing to research. A story that I really wanted to tell. And as a person who loved the library and loves books, something that spoke to me, but I decided to tell the story. It's a picture book, from the perspective of the library itself. So the library is narrating its own story, and history to the readers. So cool. As you were speaking, I realized that libraries were the internet before there was an internet. It was the place where we would go to find out something that we didn't know about. If we needed to do some research, we couldn't sit at home and go to our typewriter and type. Well, we could, but it wouldn't do us any good. We'd have to get up, walk, right, or ride to the library and get some information, go through the card index. And what do you think? Now, a place like that library, where scholars and scientists and people are coming from all over the world coming together, and then they interact together. That doesn't happen as much, or it happens in a different way. What do you think? Technology has done great things for us in giving us the power to grab information at our fingertips and walk around with this thing in our pockets that can give us access to people and places. But I don't know. I think we've lost something that might have been happening back when that library first opened. What do you think we might have lost?
I think with all the, amazing things the internet can offer, right? Like you said, having information at our fingertips, I see even my college student son doing research on Google Scholar, for example, and pulling sources and finding the perfect quote to support an art, whereas I was checking out books when I was in college and reading through them. So it's just really different. And I think that the breadth of knowledge, while it's like we have access to so much more, perhaps we've gotten a bit used to sort of skimming the surface and not digging deep. Of course, academics and scholars are still doing that, but I'm talking about the general public. Right. I think we maybe, we see it in the way we consume news and information, and our attention spans are shrinking. And I think the idea of people coming together to debate, and that's part of the book. I talk about that, the scholarship and the people coming together to learn and to debate and to think, and that what comes out of that, the magic, and then the transfer of knowledge, right? The sharing of and transferring of knowledge in this very deep way. And the library was different than the libraries, you and I used, because the books stayed there, mm-hmm. that you couldn't check them out and leave. And one of my favorite parts of this, when I was researching the library, was that there was a copper door with 4 locks on it. And each key to the lock was given to a different caregiver. And they all had to be there and open the locks at the same time to get into this room, which held the most precious of all the books that were held at this library. And so the idea of this vault that had to be opened for these very, precious books was also just, I thought, such a beautiful tribute almost to think of, the power of books and what it meant at that time to have knowledge and what people did with it then, the amazing leaps that were made in all these fields of study. And now I think it is something that we maybe take for granted a little bit. Certainly. But I definitely still believe in the power of the library and a place where you can wander and discover, and, whether it's fiction books for enjoyment or nonfiction, of course, and that hum of activity and collective thinking and reading and discovering, I just think is something special.
Absolutely. Hey, you told me that your debut graphic novel is also going to be published, and it's called We Are Big Time. Yes, I'm very, very excited about this. It's been in production for a while because graphic novels take a long time to create. The art is just stunning, and it's a story based on a true story of a girls' basketball team in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, at an Islamic school called the Salam School. The girls' uniform includes wearing the hijab, the headscarf that many Muslim women and girls wear. And this team received a lot of media coverage when they had this big turnaround season and unexpected. It was like that typical underdog, starting off as the scrappy, horrible team and then sort of pulling yourself up to the playoffs. And they got a lot of media attention, as I mentioned, and an educator in Wisconsin who was hosting me at a conference, Eliza Werner, sent me an article about the team. She knew I liked basketball. I had written a series about a kid who loves basketball in the past. And so she said, I thought you might be interested in this article. And when I read about this team and then dove a bit deeper and saw some of the media coverage they got and some of the interviews they did, I just fell in love with their story. And it just felt so cinematic and powerful that I wanted to write it as a graphic novel. And I reached out to the coach of the team and some of the players and was able to interview them and then create this fictional version of that season, which doesn't end in a predictable way, but has a lot of, like I said, those classic sports elements, but also a lot more about, being new in town and, the power of a team to, feel welcome and included. Some of the pressure when I got to interview these girls about their experience, I tried to dig a little deeper than what I was seeing in the coverage that was out there. And one of the things they shared with me was that it was difficult to feel like they had to represent
Muslim women who represent Islam. They're high school kids who really want to play basketball. And that was sort of thrust on them. And they were sometimes asked questions that they didn't know how to answer, and so that was an interesting aspect I wanted to highlight, as well as, some of the ways that we're really hard on ourselves as athletes or anything we do in life, the way we tend to focus on my character, Aaliyah, is focused more on what she gets wrong and beating herself up about it versus what she's contributing. So hopefully lots of action and also lots of heart and relatability for people who would like to read.
Yeah. That idea that we focus on the negative, we could get, 100 5-star reviews for work or compliments on what we're doing or attaboys on the playing field. But that one mistake or that one bad review, it can really ruin us. And we tend to really focus on that. Why do you think that is? It just seems like so dull. What's wrong with us?
I know. I am the same way. Yeah, and I think that's why when I was interviewing one of the girls and she mentioned that, that was something her coach pointed out to her when she was so upset about, the shots she missed or, whatever, her turnovers. And the coach was like, look at your stats, look at all the stuff you've done right. And I love the idea of other people lifting us up in those moments, and I feel like my husband does that for me. If I'm beating myself up about something, he's like, do you remember that amazing letter you got from that kid? Or do you remember, and I think sometimes we do tend to harp on that. And, I think personality is part of it, but I think, maybe it's also like our own confidence and how much you are able to receive praise and really absorb that. But sometimes it's easier to take the criticism and feel that, and believe it, unfortunately, where, I wish it was the other way around, where we focus on the positive. And
well, I think, the reason I brought that up is that because I think that can be a really important conversation to have with our kids, and also a conversation that we should remember ourselves, because I think as parents, very oftentimes when our kids mess up and get us frustrated or whatnot, we're trying to correct them, we forget about the fact that, they did this one thing that made us crazy and angry, but they probably did a couple of hundred things, probably made a couple of hundred decisions that day that we're really proud of. And so we can't forget about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know as parents, a lot of times we're also afraid to let our kids fail. And, we see that now in the rise of the term helicopter parent and, all of that. And I think it is important too, to remind ourselves, as grown-ups in kids' lives, that it's, a little bit of failure is okay, and it's a learning process and, make you stronger. So, that's something that the girls in the book are confronting as well, is, how to turn around from, defeat and really, overwhelming, pathetic defeat in the sport world, but also the personal defeats and how do you overcome that?
Yeah. So good. I think I could talk to you all day, but we don't have the time. Mention, please, the other two titles. We weren't able to cover all the titles, but just let us know about the other two titles that will be releasing or have been released in 2024.
Oh, thank you. My first was a contemporary middle grade novel called Drawing Deena. It came out in February with Simon & Schuster, and it features a young artist named Deena who is trying to find her artistic self and also dealing with undiagnosed anxiety. So she's having the physical symptoms of anxiety but doesn't know what it is. So a lot about what it means to be an artist, what it means to advocate for yourself, and deal with certain challenges like financial struggles in a family, and a lot of things that I was thinking about being an artist, about anxiety and so on. So hopefully people will connect with Deena and her sweet heart. I love her as a character. And then the last book I have coming out this year is so super fun. It's a co-authored book called Like a Boss, which is book 4 in the Best Wishes series, created by Sarah Milnowski, the amazing author of Whatever After and Upside Down Magic. And it's a really great series about a magic bracelet that travels from girl to girl. And the recipient is in the midst of a really bad day and receives this bracelet that grants a wish, one wish, whatever you want it to be. And so our character Maya, who is a Pakistani American girl living in the Washington, D.C. area, makes a wish to be in charge and is suddenly in charge of way more than she expects, and has to deal with unintended consequences. So a lot of mayhem ensues, and it was super, super fun to write and really, really funny. So I think kids, and hopefully readers of all ages will laugh their way through that one, because every time I read, the copy edited version or the layout version, I laugh all over again, because it was really fun to work on.
That's wonderful. We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about you and find out all about not only these 5 books, but all the other books that you've brought into the world.
Oh, thank you so much. You can find me on my website, which is just my name, henakhan.com. And you'll find, contact form to get in touch with me, all of my books, the resource guides I mentioned earlier, videos, articles, writing prompts, and things for kids. So please check that out. You can also connect with me on social media at Hena Khan Books. I'm not super active, so my website's probably the best place to connect with me, but you can also find out I do post about events and travels and tours and stuff on my social media as well. So if you'd like to follow, Instagram's where I'm most active.
Awesome. We've had a great time speaking to the author of The Door is Open and a whole lot more. Our guest has been Hena Khan. Thank you so much for being with us, Hena.
Thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. Until then, please be sure to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram and TikTok, and at Deadly Magic on Twitter. And of course, we'd love to have you visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we're going to start by thanking our guests, Marty Martinez and Hena Khan. Want to thank my amazing sponsors and my incredibly talented team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Chris Doherty. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all of her support, and most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.